specially appointed prosecutor, appointed by the governor of Florida, the Republican governor of Florida, finally, she announced a couple of days ago that it's going to be within 72 hours, she'll make a decision. And sure enough, today she made a decision, or the previous decision was made to arrest
Mr.
Zimmerman on a second-degree murder charge. That is a significant level of charge in a criminal case, because that in Florida it's a life sentence. If you're convicted, up to life you can get for that. And they also said that Zimmerman turned himself in. Okay. So he is in custody, and that's a very significant advance in the case. The family was on this afternoon, this evening, being interviewed about it, and they were so happy, and so all of the personages in that case connected with the family were all so pleased, expressed the pleasure at an arrest taking place.
Well, one of the things that what concerns me about this is that I'm never, and I'm glad that the family's happy, but this is just a charge. It means nothing to me in terms of any justice being done, because you can charge a ham sandwich, but the conviction is what we're looking for in this particular situation. If we want justice to be done, and to most people that are looking at this case, a conviction is what is justice.
You know, I think a lot of the relief that the family as well as the general public has is the fact that he was charged and he was found, because that was an issue. You know, yesterday when his lawyers were saying that they were no longer going to be his lawyers because they couldn't get in contact with him, people were concerned that maybe, you know, was he in the country, you know, where was he, since no one could really locate him. So I think it's a relief that he was charged and located, so that, you know, we're at least at the start of the situation. And I think also, again, since they did take it away from a grand jury and put it in the hands of the special prosecutor, if she analyzed the information and saw enough information in order to charge him, although most of us knew that long time ago, then that's encouraging somewhat to say that hopefully when we go to trial they can bring out the information and prove the information on the prosecutor's side and disprove any nonsense that the defense wants to come up with.
Now, one of the things that I haven't had a chance, because this has just recently happened, just before we actually came into the studio, I haven't had a chance to kind of look at the whole aspect of how this case is being set up. But I was just wondering to myself, we have that particular charge that they have, and what were the other charges besides that? I mean, is there any, besides the second-degree murder, is there manslaughter, manslaughter 2, manslaughter, you know, because when usually they charge them with all the things they can, in case they can't prove their case against one, and I'm wondering if they're putting all their eggs in one basket is what my concern is.
Well, that would depend on the advance, because the case is still being investigated by the state and federal governments. So that would depend on what proceeds after this, because some states you may not be able to charge both second degree and manslaughter at the same time. But the circumstances may be in the trial, the judge may say, well, okay, about, you know, most of these trials wind up in a plea bargain. In the first place. But this particular trial has such notoriety, has such celebrity attached to it, that it's hard to predict where this goes, because everybody's in there from the judge on down in terms of how they're going to look publicly.
Now, and one of the things that I thought about was, because of the exposure of this case, here we come with the whole idea, can we get a fair trial for Zimmerman in the particular area where this happened at? So now the specter of, and of course the bad taste in our mouth about moving trials, here we come again. You know, we know from Simi Valley, from Rodney King and moving the trial from Los Angeles to there. We know the same thing with the whole situation with Oscar Grant, where they had to move the trial from Oakland to Los Angeles. And now we have this particular situation where you even hear the district attorney on TV talking about the notoriety of the case and the exposure of it and the possibility of maybe this case being moved. I mean, how do you feel about that, and what do you think the community feels about that? What kind of message does that send to the community that they might not be able to be fair and balanced?
Well, I think it should be a little different in this case, only because we are dealing with a special prosecutor and they're not going through the grand jury route. And, it depends on how the case progresses as to whether or not, if they go through an appeal, whether a panel of judges are going to review it. The situation is slightly different. And, fortunately or unfortunately for Zimmerman, this situation has been, very popular throughout the country. So if you move it, I don't really know how different it's going to be if you move it from one area to the other.
Okay.
It's called a change of venue.
Right, the change of venue. It was interesting because I've had a conversation with some people about this particular case, and I want to talk a little bit about that and get into some of the particulars. One of the things that I think is interesting when you have conversations with individuals is that people get invested in their emotions, and I know I certainly was in the first part, understanding my experience as a black man in this country, being a young black man and growing up in this country, understanding the negative stereotypes that affect how people judge me. I still have people, as I said before, react to me because of my color and my size. And for people to say that they don't believe that has any fact in it, I find very interesting, especially since none of them are black and they don't know what it is to be black. So you don't know what that experience was with Zimmerman versus that guy. Now, of course, none of us was there. One person said to me that, and I don't know how true this is. They were saying that the young man is like 6'3". I don't know how tall he was. I don't remember anything that I've read that said he was tall. And they was just, well, what about the issue? And Jones, I remember I played the piece for you, and this is the same thing this other person reiterated. They thought about, well, what did the hood have to do with the way he was behaving? Well, the last time I checked, it was raining. Maybe I would have my hood up over my head. And again, when you talk about a hood, what does that mean? What are you saying or what is your perception? What are your own personal biases that you're bringing to the table to say that you can understand why he did what he did because this young brother had a hood on his head?
Yeah, and you can't, again, just like when the issue came up with when Geraldo Rivera made his statement, you can't judge the clothing. There's a gentleman on TV that said, I don't know, you can't say a hoodie is come shoot me clothing because it's a style choice. And there's a lot of style choices. Women wear hats that are big and floppy and cover their faces, all the time as styles, and no one says that they're trying to do anything, that's underhanded. So you can't really use that as an example. If they want to criticize, the way people are dressing, they can do that from a fashion standpoint, but they can't do that I don't believe they should be able to do that from a defense standpoint. And young men all around the country will tell you that there are just certain ways that they wear their clothing that they think is cool, and if you want to judge it, that's fine, but you can't use that as an excuse.
Well, I mean, what did you think about that, Bert?
Well, I'd like to deal with this and your question and the way Lori responded. We are looking at this case because it's so dramatic, and maybe be looking at it and focusing on it in a dramatic manner. But this case is emblematic of cases throughout the country. And you touched on something in terms that deals with perception of who you are. Sunday's, the April 1st Times had a great article about the study that Duke University did in 2006 regarding that's related to this case. Zimmerman and some of his defenders are saying, well, look, I'm not white. He's not white. He's Hispanic.
Right.
He had a white father and a Peruvian mother. So what is he? So this article that in the Times dealt with the sociological and cultural system that we're in that is actually a caste system. Where being white is more than just a skin or appearance thing. It's a goal to achieve. It's a status. And being black is the lowest on the totem pole in this country and through other countries in Latin America where immigrants come. And they did, Duke University did a study on the perception that whites, blacks, and Hispanics have toward each other.
Right.
So you say, phew, boy, the blacks would say, wow, at least he's Hispanic, he's not white. But that's a trap, because the study showed that Hispanics have a worse view of blacks than whites do. I mean, and blacks have, in their study, show that blacks consider Hispanics hardworking and trustworthy, but Hispanics think blacks the other way, of being lazy, and can't be trusted, and which is worse than the way the level of the whites think.